Ladies and gentlemen, uh, we are back with the crime of critique. Now, I've been away for a little bit. It's been about a year and a half since I last did my review, but a lot of things have changed since then. So I just want to give some context and basically lay out why I moved from watching a bunch of Western media, just basically Hollywood stuff, to anime. Now, I've seen anime the past 3 or 4 years. Basically, I had watched it when I was a kid. Hardly watched any of it when I was a teenager. But then I recently got back into it. And the reason, I started this channel was just to give people an idea, not only what the newest media was or the newest movie, but just give my own, just basically giving my own thoughts on it. And what it turned into was I was slowly losing interest over time in a lot of at least newer Hollywood movies. My first couple reviews were on some older movies actually, and about 4 or 5 years ago, it was during the summer. So basically, the height of COVID, I watched a ton of Hollywood movies. I went to my local library, rented a bunch of them on Blu-ray and DVD, and just binged the whole summer. And it was great. I really, thought I watched a lot of really good movies. They were pretty satisfying. But then recently, when it's come to newer movies, the well's been pretty dry. Theater production is down. The theater experience just doesn't, feel the same watching a lot of these newer Hollywood movies. Because there's a lot of problems which a lot of people correctly point out with them. And yeah, I really just tried. I gave it my best. I really did try to watch some of the newer movies, but we're only getting what it feels like 1 to 3 good movies a year compared to even what we had more than a decade ago when we had at least, probably 10 to 20 solid movies we could watch. Storytelling has just incredibly gone down as far as modern movies go. So then that brings myself to anime. So, like I said, I had watched it when I was a kid. I saw mainly Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. So Pokemon is one of the big 5 or 7 anime that everyone has at least seen when they were a kid, and I was one of them. But then, I kind of ditched cartoons for a little bit there when I became a teenager, and I really didn't think about it that much until I reached one of the 3 gateways in the 2020s. So anime has progressed from, being a niche thing, um, basically in the 90s. So because anime was mostly, it's Japanese animation. That's what I consider anime. There's a bunch of various definitions, but that's what I consider anime. Um, it didn't reach an international audience until the 90s, I believe, and then it was pretty niche for probably about 25 to 30 years. But then recently, especially when COVID came around, everyone was shut in, and then social media use just skyrocketed through the roof because we had nothing to do in our houses. Um, People started getting into anime, and then that's when it really felt like it was starting to become mainstream. And especially the past couple years, it's outpaced Hollywood, unbelievably. So that's the backstory of actual anime. And then myself, I got back into it about 3 or 4 years ago when my brother was watching on Netflix. I think it was Assassination Classroom, and he's like, "Oh, watch this with me," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I started watching it. And I'm like, "This is this is actually pretty great. Like the storytelling was great. Like I liked the animation. Um, Assassination Classroom for being your first one back is a little bit is a little funny. It's a little weird, but I thought it was amazing. And then it ended. Thankfully, it's a 2-season anime, so they finished it, because I really don't like stories unless they're finished. Um, and it ended up being such a fantastic story. I actually was almost brought to tears by the ending, and I was like, I haven't done this in like a really long time. Like nothing has moved me that much. So, and then we started looking into more anime, which was on Netflix, and that's basically where I uh, got that ball rolling into that. The three gateways. The three gateways. A lot of people get into anime. It's through friends, and then streaming services, like I mentioned with Netflix. Streaming services have been a big part of the recent Western explosion in anime. There was a report that came out about halfway through 2025, which said that now 50% of Netflix users watch anime. I think it was dubbed anime, which is a little bit different than a subbed anime, but regardless, they're still watching anime. So that was like a big jump. And then a bunch of other streaming services have picked it up. Hulu's got a couple, unfortunately. Um, Prime now has a couple exclusives. Netflix has been the big one. So where does that leave Hollywood? Well, they've kind of been left behind in the dust. It's been now a long time since they've had a really great, successful year. Now, obviously, uh, we've had really big blockbusters the past decade, but it just, the overall volume of year to year consistency has been terrible from Hollywood. Why is that the case? Well, one of the biggest reasons, and I personally think the biggest reason, is simply storytelling. Um, Storytelling between Hollywood movies versus slash TV shows and anime storytelling is just two completely different levels. And there are so many problems which plague a lot of Hollywood stuff, but it's going to include stuff like the preaching. They're not telling a story; they are sending messages, which some of them go so hard where it just completely disengages you even from the story. And the stories are, they're bland, boring. We've got so many rehashes, repeats, sequels, reboots, every single one now, like the big movies, especially this year, like we had a Running Man soft reboot. How does that happen? Right? So I really don't get it why they're doing it. Maybe it's the ESG, I don't know. And another thing is the lack of authenticity. These film studios have to, meet certain quotas, and especially now, it feels like these quotas are forcing their way into all of the production teams, into the writing of the very movies themselves, and just completely ruining it because they have to fill these quota boxes, which, as we're finding out, are completely ruining these movies. And another thing is all these movies going over budget. They have to make hundreds of millions of dollars for almost all of these just to barely break even on them. Let's say we have a $100 million movie, right? It needs probably 175 to 200 million just to break even. Now, break even, obviously, if it goes past 100 million, it's break even. I'm saying to make a profit on it, right? So these movies, they just keep on getting bigger and bigger, and nobody's stopping them. And somehow the quality just is gone downhill for most of these. It's not been a great success from the Hollywood standpoint. So if Hollywood's so bad, something has to take it, right? And anime has been the thing to take it. Now, I mentioned it before with the storytelling. but these stories are actually interesting. Now, the funny thing, one of the stereotypes you'll get is, anime plots completely out of context can sound really weird. Like, one of my favorite ones is uh, Samurai chases down Michael Jackson. Yeah, that's basically the plot of Demon Slayer for the most part. Uh, Obviously, there's some cheeky ones which you can do, but almost all of these stories are actually engaging. They are filled with a lot of emotion, a lot of depth. Um, these stories have a lot of thinking that's gone into them, and what's great about it is the reason why a lot of anime is successful now, especially, is because they've already had their audience for it, right? The most anime is made based off of manga, and that's already a hard task. Having a consistent formula for making manga, then they know, okay, this is successful. We're going to try to do the first season of this anime, and then it ends up working out. They make more seasons, they make more merchandise, then they start making the movies, and that's where a lot of the major anime franchises are at today. But it's a really tried and true formula, which Hollywood kind of did themselves with Avengers. They built up a past reputation from the first couple of films, and then boom, they brought them all together for a couple movies, and it was really, really successful. Now, obviously, the franchise made it into a chore just by having and forcing you to watch so many stuff in it. But regardless, and then another positive point was the differences in animation. Like, obviously, anime in general has its own kind of style. It's not American, right? But within anime, there are so many different, unique, and different styles of animation, and it's just really cool, personally speaking, to see all those different kinds, go together. Now, there is, um, obviously, there is a little bit of a drawback to that because there is, like, modern day anime, it does, there are like certain ones which have this like generic look to them. There is like the generic anime look, but for the most part there's differences in animation. And on top of them, you know being successful, being engaging, the authors of the creators of these series just seem to be filled with passion, right? You got passionate authors, you got artists who help the authors create the manga, and then you have the when it goes to an anime show, you got all these people working on the anime, and it just a lot of the times it feels like they're actually passionate at what they're doing. It resonated with me. It resonated with a lot of people. I think it seems like it's like, for instance, like this year, 2025, um, this at the end of the year. But in 2025, we had a couple movies come out. We had the Demon Slayer movie come out, which is supposed to be the first of a trilogy, and the Chainsaw Man Reze arc. Those movies made almost 10 times the amount that they made back, and that goes for the fan bases as well. We've seen a massive increase in popularity in things like conventions, manga sales, stuff like that. So it's been a real collective effort from everyone involved in watching and producing these shows. And the final message you can take from it is anime just doesn't take their audience lightly. They know what their audience is, and they're going to give it to them. That's basically what I had to say on that. I'm just very glad I was able to find watching anime because it's such a blast to enjoy these shows. So hopefully going forward, I can bring more content. I got some anime projects in the works for future videos, but this will be a big turning point for my channel and the podcasts. So hopefully I can deliver on what is going to be a great year for 2026. So hopefully you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Like I said, I've got some in the works. They'll be coming out in the next couple of months. But I think that should be it. Thank you very much.